Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me in another of my interviews. Today we are going to have a look at a book that everyone would have heard of, probably the best-selling book that's ever been written and one of the oldest books, I suppose, you could argue in existence. It's the Bible. Are you somebody who reads the Bible? Are you reading the Bible correctly? That is the question that my interviewee is asking and arguing, that we're reading it in a modern way when perhaps we should be reading it in the way that it was originally written, i.e. the words have changed. So her name, now she wants to say she's very much a background person. She doesn't want to be exposed like a lot of people who are bringing interesting information to the fore. So we are calling her Rebellious Thorn. She does have a YouTube channel, and I shall leave a link to a video that she recorded with me. Rebellious Thorn, it's lovely to have you on the channel. We are putting up The Hand of God by Michelangelo to represent you as you talk about the Bible. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure on this very cold February morning. It certainly is cold here, but we'll crack on. So now it's interesting because you introduced me to your video that you sent, in which you've gone back, as I understand it, and translated the original words to what they would have meant back in those days, whereas today we tend to think that words mean something because we're very familiar with the English language, but actually we might be misinterpreting it, and those words are actually saying completely different things. Is that a fair understanding of what you've been doing?
Yes, what it is, we're reading the Bible now with the meanings of today and the dictionaries we're told to use.
Right.
There are many versions of the Bible, but what you'll find is a lot of them aren't authorised. And words have been changed, words have been taken out. And there's the King James 1611, which is authorised. You go back even further, there's William Tyndale, there's the Apocryphy. And so what I did, I took the key words of Genesis to Deuteronomy and looked at the earliest language, which is Sanskrit and Indo-European, and looked at the key words, excuse me, in the Bible as to what they meant then, not now. And an example I can give is, let's just say somebody found a book in 2,000 years' time and, for instance, said, oh, he stabbed him in the back. Oh, they used to go around stabbing him in the back in those days. So, you know, or two-faced, they had two faces. So it's looking at
I see.
it.
So the meanings we think, I mean, that's a great example of the two faces. You could say, oh, he was two-faced. We know what that means.
Yeah.
We don't, it's not a literal translation that he had two faces on his head, but we might, you know, somebody in the future might read that if they didn't know the language. So I absolutely get it. So you've gone back to, could you give us some examples then of what?
Right. Well, for instance, you look at the word day, 7 days, and the reason I've sent the video to you, so people, because it's so in depth, so people can watch that video and it'll take them all the way through. It was done about 12 years ago. It took me years to get it all together, and it explains, I didn't have any notes, nothing, just went straight into it. Anyway, back to for instance, the word day. Now, you know, day, night, but back then it was a frequency, a vibration. So you're getting the 7 frequencies.
Oh, see. I mean, I mean, I mean, it's interesting you take the word day, because day is a very strange word in and of itself, because a day could be 24 hours, but it can also be daytime, like when the light is shining. But we still assume that a whole day includes the night. So, as you say, it can be, you know, just language in and of itself. But you're saying that day, what we might think of as going out on a day somewhere, means vibration.
Yeah, that's what it sort of meant back then. And I'll just sort of quickly take you through, because it's Sorry.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But when you say take me back to then, what sort of
Oh,
period are we talking about? When it was
sorry.
original?
Yeah, it was classed as the earliest language, Proto-Indo-European and Sanskrit. And for instance, the first day, I'll just give a few examples because it's all in the video that I sent to you.
Sure.
So the first day, now first originally meant to follow, to pledge.
Right. Okay.
Well, you'll start to see where this is going. And so then you get to the second, which used to be April, and it goes back, foam, bubble, strength. So you're pledging the strength, the power. And then the third was May, and that was ascend. Fourth was June, Juno, and it was a vital force. Then you get to the fifth, which, believe it or not, 5 was Jupiter, god of the household, inner voice, temple, senses. And so it goes on, but it's all in that video.
Yes.
This is going to confuse people if they don't
Well,
watch that.
no, absolutely, and so I won't get too much into the interpretation in individual things. I did watch the video, pretty much most of it, and what I suppose one needs to ask then is, we're reading, let's say, in Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve, and we think of it as two people who have been created by God. And then Eve takes the apple from the tree of knowledge, and she meets up with the snake, who says, if you have this, you'll I'm not supposed to have this. Well, if you have it, you'll get the knowledge. She does that. She realizes that gets the shame and realizes they're naked, and then they get chucked out. As far as my memory goes, so. If you're saying that all those words meant something different, what would be the interpretation then? What are they actually saying in that little scene?
Okay. Well, what we've been given over the years, and this is the difficult bit, we've been given a picture of a man and a woman, and they're in a garden, and same with Noah and the Ark, 2 by 2 and all this, which it doesn't
Yes.
actually say they went in 2 by 2. But I'll go to the Adam and Eve sort of just quickly. Now, the original word, man, the original definition of man was cosmos, universe.
Right.
That was the original.
So does that mean that God created the universe instead of God created man?
Our own universes. Do you see what I mean? When we're in our own little cosmos, they say bubble, don't they? A
Right.
lot of these old sayings. So we're our own universes. And what happened? The snake, which meant corruption, came along, and to bite off the apple of good and evil. It says in the 1611 of good and evil. So what it is, it's a bit. How can I explain it? You've got the good in you, now you've gone and got the evil as well. But the original definition of woman was woman. It'll give you sorrow. So you have to get the pictures.
So yes, okay. But for the sake of the audience, I mean, how would you interpret that in layman's terms for us? What does it now mean if you've gone back and you've gone all these individual words and you put them together, you string them together? What is that saying in that little, just to give us an idea of how different it might be from what we would read it today?
Okay. Well, what it's telling you is that Almighty God has made us in sort of our own cosmos, our own universe. Some people call it auras, don't they? Nerve system. You look at the nerve system, it's like a tree, isn't it? When you look at it on a biological aspect.
Very similar, yeah. Tree and the nerve system.
So start to look at it like that. And what it's telling you is, if you divert, you're in, call it a garden. A garden is a boundary, isn't it? It's got boundaries around it. So you're in there, but if you turn and the bite of the apple was consuming the fruit, was if you turn and start possessing, consuming corruption, that's where the woe and sorrow will come in. The ego taking over the self, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
And it's warning you of that. For instance, the Ark of the Covenant. People are running around looking under mountains and wherever else looking for it. It's within. You change that K, A-R-K, to A-R-C. And a covenant is a pledge. And hence, if you look at the Michelangelo painting, you'll see that God's hand is outstretched and man's hand is quite limp.
Right. Okay. What does that mean?
Well, that means Almighty God's there, He's stretched out for us, but, it's like giving the definition of, can you be bothered to follow the path? Is it easier to go down another route? Is it easier, that fruit's been bitten? Is it easier to go down the wide path instead of the narrow one?
Right.
And
Okay. So how would Michelangelo have known that when he was painting? Because I mean, when I can't remember the year he was painting. Was it in the 16th or 17th century or before that?
somewhere around there, I
Somewhere
think.
in that sort of period. So would he have read the Bible in the correct way, with the language, or would that have been in during the time after 1611 when the authorized version that King James had? And would he have managed to sort of interpret it so he could say, "Oh, man is not reaching out to God as firmly as you just said he would be, or could be," and he's perhaps indicating that?
In all honesty, I don't know.
No,
I don't know if
he's not
he
here to
would.
ask, is he? Michelangelo, could you just let us know what was the mean? But so okay, let's go back to the Bible. So I mean, you've done a great chunk of the Bible interpreting this. So what would you say that the Bible is for then?
It's a guide. It's a guide. Um, and I mean, we different jobs you train for, don't you? And
Yes,
you have somebody to show you how to do it. But when you're uh, trying to get or looking at what should I be doing, who should I be, why am I here, I'd say it's a guide, because it also tells you as well, when it says sacrifice your son, a son was a song
a
to do
son,
with
a
it's to
son
do with
was a.
music.
Oh, right.
Same as Moses muses music.
Right,
So
because you said, and I know in your video, you said that some of the names are
mm,
not really names of people or
mm,
places. They
mm,
have a different meaning, which,
yeah,
of course, I mean, people who read the Bible or who understand the Bible may be going, well, hang on a minute, I'm struggling with this.
mm.
And I'll ask you if you do find people who struggle with your interpretation of this. But so just tell us what some of the names might have meant then. As you said with
Right.
Moses
Yeah,
means
I'll give a couple. Moses goes back to muses, music, symphony. You've got your organs, haven't you? It's sort of in your face there.
right.
And Jacob was a pledge. So it's all these names. Noah was mental peace. For instance, not that it's the name of a person, but when it rained for 40 days, it's been spelled Rain, and it's Reign. That's sorry, Reign. That's where
Right.
it came from. And this will probably confuse people this bit, and they may get it more, when they watch the lengthier video.
Yes.
But it's which I won't go into now, but I've just got Leviticus to do, but I've put all those key words into what the Bible or what the teachings originally were all those years ago. And it mentions love, it's a lot softer. The word I changes, because I got to tell where for instance, Deuteronomy must have come out about 300 or 400 years later than Genesis, because how it was written, I started to see the change, in the method of writing. And you've got I've lost my train of thought there now. Oh yeah,
Deuteronomy. Yeah.
so what you've got is the I, because some people say, oh, it's a vicious God and all this. Well, the I changes sometimes to the I is the ego, the self will destroy you.
Right.
And so
Which a lot of people would agree with anyway. I think a
yeah,
lot, especially the awakened people who are understanding how
mm,
ego
mm,
it can be useful if used very cautiously,
mm,
but it can take over and
yes,
bring you problems.
yeah, yeah. And there's a chap on YouTube, and he videoed, I don't know who this gentleman was, who was talking to him through a window. The chap had just picked a takeaway up, and sorry, I meant to send you that. And he described that particular process of going through the fire to get the gold, because you have to purify yourself, really.
Right.
And because people become too caring about the self. And the first thing you have to do is, and you'll see some old pictures of this, is look in the mirror before you do anything and look
Right.
who you are.
To look through who you. So I mean, now to people who don't know the Bible very
Mm,
well, this might all be quite academic, to them, and they're well, I'm not really
mm,
interested in the Bible. It
mm,
was written some time ago. What's it got to do with me? And then there will be those that perhaps do follow the Bible or are more aware of it and relatively or have read it, bits of
mm.
it or quite large chunks of it, and they may be sort of a bit skeptical about what you say. So. Where did you go back to when you say you went back to the sources? How do you go back to the original sources? Because do we know who wrote the Bible?
Well,
And
no, what I did, I took the words back to the probably earliest known language, which was Proto-Indo-European and Sanskrit, and went down the etymology line of words.
right,
Because this is just a quick example, and I think this is the dictionary, apart from the Latin, that's being used, because which I'll go into. But you've got uh, B for Bravo, F for Foxtrot. Even that, I looked at it and I thought, why do they use those words? And just out of interest, I translated all those words back, and they made a complete sentence.
oh,
You know,
okay, what did it say?
I've not got it in front of me
All
now,
right, fair
but
enough.
it was again, it was on about pledging to them. It's absolutely unreal when you take the words back
Right.
to watch their actual meaning, which I'll go on to more up to date, as we go on here. But with the Bible, I think if people watch that, I mean, it's an hour and 45 minutes.
I mean, the only thing about the video that you did, and I know you said you did it off cuff, and I will leave a link to it. It's
Yeah.
just that it's very hard to watch in term because you're giving loads of words that you interpret, and you give us
Mm.
different words. But what I felt was lacking, and this isn't a criticism of
No.
you particularly, is when you put those words together, what does it all mean?
Yeah. Well, this is the
Because in
state.
a way, it's like picking up a foreign dictionary
Uh,
and you're reading, oh, cat is chien in
yeah.
French, or
Mm.
whatever it is, a dog, I think it was, dog is, and you go, okay, I've got these words, but what does it mean in the Bible?
Mm.
What is the end result of doing all that hard work? How do we now look at the Bible
Mm.
if we go back to those original words? And you told me it's a guide. Is it a guide for good? Do you think it's a truthful thing, or was it a maliciously written object? Have we just misinterpreted it?
Um, no, I say a guide. Maybe I've used it. It's also a book of law. It's
Right.
also a book of law, and what I'm doing at the moment, I've just got Leviticus to do, I am putting all those words together. It's such a mammoth task, and
Yeah,
there's
no,
only me.
I appreciate that. I mean, all I'm trying to get is a sense of, you must have a sense as you start going through this and you
Mm,
read like Genesis and you say,
mm,
I've got these new words. What is the sort of, the end interpretation of this? It must give you a sense of what it's saying about us, the people who read it, or who it was aimed at. Is it aimed at a modern audience, do you think, or is it aimed at just those people? Why was it written? Does it give you a different feeling about what the purpose of this book was? Have we misinterpreted the whole thing, that it's this incredible book that we all should be reading, or was it just, like a novel that somebody wrote?
yeah. No, I don't think it was a novel at all. I think it was parts of it were a bit like, the boy that cried wolf, trying to teach us through, is it allegory it's called,
Yeah.
lessons. But I think apart from the descriptions that are in there, it's also a book of law and commands. What it's pretty much telling us is, and this is a real sort of short synopsis, is, you're here, follow these rules and laws. It's like, your mum and dad type of thing. Follow these rules and laws, and you'll be okay. You will get wolves in sheep's clothing. You will get, call it the other side, coming after you, but I'll be there for you. The love that this being, if people, God has got for you, is absolutely immense. But you need to turn in that direction. You need to look at yourself. You can't let the ego take over, or the self. And it's also telling you to close yourself off to evil. It's I don't believe it's not telling you to forgive people, because that's God's job. Again, the old meaning of forgive was the mind was possessed.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That'll
that's your forehead, four
yes.
temples. And give, take, whatever, it all goes back to possess. So um and it's saying do the best you can. You'll look at the story of Noah. He failed. Think Abraham failed. When they say they got drunk, it means the mind wasn't there. It had,
So it's not a literal interpretation that they
no,
had too much alcohol,
no,
they got
no,
drunk,
no.
the mind wasn't there because they were
Yeah,
befuddled.
yeah. This is it. And it's saying, don't become naked. It doesn't mean,
Strip off.
the king with no clothes type thing. Naked back then was you weren't pledged to anything.
Right.
You were open.
Yeah. You
You
were
know,
open. So
yeah.
no, that's really good. I mean, that sort of information is really good, because that, you know, if you took it as it is literally, you
Mm,
might think, oh, it's against nudity,
mm.
and of course, we know that in the old days we're born naked.
Yeah,
So it's like we're not born in a suit
yeah,
of clothes.
yeah.
And it's saying don't be open. So a different interpretation
Mm,
of
mm,
how we might, and
yeah,
we might still
yeah.
use that
I'll
naked in that
I'll give
way.
you. It says, for instance, that to become sort of a knight of God, uh, and anybody knows. Like, if I explain it this way, if you became a knight or a soldier, you don't just waltz about and don't have to put any effort in.
Right.
So that's a physical outer training, but then you've got the inner training. For instance, look at gossip, greed, envy, bitterness, all different things like that, all those different frequencies. Keep them out,
Mm.
because they'll go for the ego and the self. So you've got to be so careful, and that's why people, the plagues are still here, and
And
That's
when
why.
you say plagues, are we talking like plagues of locusts, or are we
Yeah, well,
talking about?
again, there was different meanings for those as well, and again, you're looking at uh, oh gosh, what was it? There was the plagues, the desert. People can call that depression, mental illness. Now, I'm not saying biologically people don't suffer with depression and
No,
mental.
no, no. Of course.
I'm not saying that, but so it's and you need to get out of the desert, get out of the void, because it tells you there was a void already there, and it was all sorted, and that's where people can find themselves in the desert.
And
It's
so the
again, it's
desert is like
saying,
depression and not
yeah,
achieving anything, and
yeah,
getting
yeah,
into a rut.
yes, yes.
And so
So
okay.
yeah.
So you mentioned it, a book of law,
Mm,
and so that's very interesting. And do you think that? So let me ask you. There's a number of questions I want to ask you.
mm,
Do you think that it is has it been deliberately written now to deceive those people who read it in plain English, let's say, or modern English would be a better way of saying it? Or has it just the fact that over the years that it's been rewritten has just been misinterpreted and has tried to, make it into something that was acceptable, so that it has gone so far from what it was originally saying, with names that now become names of people or places and not what they were originally meant?
I don't think the Bible's been explained properly at all. I also think that sometimes people don't read it properly. What I hear a lot of now is people look in the Bible just to find something that suits. you,
Right.
you can't use it like that. When you were little, can you remember when you were in and out and somebody would say, "Are you in or are you out?" When you were playing.
Yes.
And so it's a bit like that. You can't keep just jumping in.
So I mean, I get, so people will write, if I say something on one of my shows, somebody might quote something from the Bible to muster up their point,
Mm,
whatever it might be, and they say, well, in the Bible it says this, and then
mm,
they'll just quote out of context, out
mm,
of just one line, as if to say, well, this is going to happen, and here it is, there's the line in the Bible. Now, who knows, the line before, or 5 pages before, may say the opposite, but to me, it seems they've cherry picked one bit to sort of
mm,
bolster up their argument. Now, I'm not familiar with all of the Bible. I do have a Bible, and we've interviewed a chap who's done his own translation of the Bible,
mm.
but it's pretty much the same sort of thing. So is that what you mean by you're in and out? That you sort of cherry pick something to say, well, I'm standing by this line, but maybe not the other line.
Yeah, you can't pick verses out to suit. And I think if people went through it um, properly, they would start to see the laws. Because, for instance, and I'm just trying to find it here now. Sorry, bear with me.
No, that's all right.
I know it. Oh, here we go. Now, this is one I find that a lot of people use. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. And then they just pull that out.
Yeah.
But carry on. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thy hand to, in the land whither thou go to possess it. Right. Another bit.
But hang on, before you go on,
Yeah.
what does that mean? How would we interpret that, and then how would your research interpret that to the original meaning?
Right. Well, what that's saying is the believers in God don't charge, don't be charging them interest, but if the evil or demonic, or they don't believe in God. Well, a ho type of thing. Another word that's used in the Bible is foreigner. It was a foreigner, which
Oh,
means
right, yeah. Right, okay.
yeah, but they've put it together. So it's a foreigner, which is, somebody who thinks they themselves are a god, small g. That's when the self and the ego take over.
Right.
So there's a lot in there. And for instance, the Ten Commandments, it says, now this is so important for the world today. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So why have we gone back in it again?
Well,
So Egypt actually was Kemet, and it means the beholden.
so if you take that word to mean beholden, what does he say instead of Egypt? I am the
No,
Lord.
it says, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
So he would be saying out of the house of what?
Where you've been beholden, where you've possessed by the self or somebody else,
Right.
type of thing. Now, it clearly says here, thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Right.
Now, the word God, small g, was people's inner voices that
Okay.
think they're gods.
That think they're gods.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? That they're fooling themselves that let's take it, for instance, the government aren't gods.
No.
The
They,
councils aren't gods.
no. Certainly behave like gods, and we all know that. No, exactly. So when you say the small voice, that's not the voice in your head. You're the voice when that's saying, "Oh, I think I'll go and have a cup of tea," or
Oh no.
I think what she's talking is a load of old rubbish," or that voice, not that voice. The small voice is what external voices, like administrations, who think.
Well, and it can, it can be it's all to do with people, because you can come across somebody that's never wrong.
Right. Yes. Right.
And
So, I see. So small voices. Right. Okay.
yeah,
Different.
they're
Yeah.
the small ones that are taking over.
So
It,
just sorry, because I'm a bit slow and I'm a bit thick, and I dare say there might be a few people who are also just we're just trying to, because this backwards,
yeah,
I'm getting this for the first time. So just humour me a bit more. So read that line again. Thou shalt not take, what was it about? Listen to other. You can't have more than one God.
it says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now,
And
interestingly, the word me originally had an S on it, which was mess,
that meant.
divine law.
Right. Okay. So that makes a lot. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that the Creator created everything,
Yeah.
and that He said, "Look, and of course there is a maxim in law that we have that he who creates controls, or owns, which makes perfect sense. If I make a cup out of clay, I've made that cup. Okay, you could argue that God made the clay, and I've made the object, but I can control that. Nobody else can say that's mine because they didn't make it. So to have another god like the council, and this is where it becomes really interesting, I think, for people, or the government who claim, not in so many words, to be a god, but they act like they are gods, and they say, due to our legislation, which is just them getting together in a smoke-filled room and writing up some rules, this is what you and everybody else must do. But that one commandment there, which is, as you say, divine law, says, no, you can't, don't obey them because they are small gods.
And the one, thou shalt not commit adultery. Now, today it means an affair, or when this was written, the word adultero was corruption. No
Right.
corruption.
So do not get corrupt. So
Yeah.
it's fine, everybody. You can go and have your affairs, left, right, and centre, but don't do corruption.
Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. For instance, now people think a neighbour, somebody who lives next door or down the road. Neighbour was drawn breath.
Drawn breath.
Yeah.
So don't have false witness against your own.
Yeah,
Against it.
don't speak lies. Don't speak corruption.
Right.
Don't be a false witness. A witness is a knowing sense.
A knowing sense.
Yeah. So don't start corrupting the speech either.
Right.
So
I mean,
it's
a lot of that is. I mean, it's basic morals, isn't it? Really.
yeah.
You know, it's right. It's what intrinsically I would argue that most people, unless they're narcissistic bastards or whatever, would be born with an innate understanding of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
But they may be tempted to, push somebody over so that they can get the material wealth or prestige or all those things that the ego likes. So would you say would you say the Bible really then is a book of morals that it is expressing in a way for the Creator or the divine law, whatever, to help us on our way?
Yeah, there's that, but it has also got the laws and commands in, because there's it's telling you not to steal, don't make any covenant with them, nor with their gods.
Right.
Don't bow down to them. You
To
know,
their
it's all in there. It's
Yes.
all in there.
I mean, I would totally agree with the premise that if the Creator has created the earth and us on it, He is I mean, it would be helpful if He poked His head through the clouds and said, "Hello, I'm here." But somebody created, or something created us, and that He or she or it, the Force, whatever it is, has ultimate control of us. The fact that we sort of ignore that these days and go and put all our trust into governments and councils and then start obeying them must annoy, especially if they're not doing a good job, which, you just have to look at the Labour Party, for example, or the councils and the way they treat people. They're not doing a good job. So why people agree to all of that if there is a divine law that said, hang on a minute, I'm the Creator, mate. And it is, and I've said in my book, it's wrong to bow down to the council and all the rest, because their rules they're not really for you.
Well, there's some interesting stuff I've got ready here to move on to, but I'll just give you a few more bits. You shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie to one another. You shall not curse the deaf. That doesn't mean people who can't hear. Again, hear came from the word, it's a frequency, a vibration. So even if they're not on my frequency length, a bit like radio stations.
Right.
Get out of the Tower of Babel and tune in.
And what the Tower of Babel is what? The babble of people's voices.
Yeah, and just easiest way to describe it is like a radio station. You're going through all the radio station. It's
Yeah.
And so get out of that. You need to tune in to the premium channel.
To the premium channel, which, by the way, is the Richard Vobes channel. No. That was the ego coming through. No, absolutely. And the premium station then presumably is you and your maker.
Yeah. And it says, so don't curse the deaf, these that aren't, listening, nor put a stumbling block before the blind. It doesn't mean you can't see. It's you can't see where you should be going. So
yes.
There's lots of other stuff in there that tells you, if you for instance here, if you take something from somebody you shouldn't have done, you have to pay double back. It's all in there. People really need to read properly.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, it's very difficult for people to read it properly unless they've actually gone back and done, as you've done, taken the etymology back to the original interpretation.
Yeah. But even so, just read it, Deuteronomy gets a bit more modern. because it's been written at a later date. But interestingly, as I say, that it's all in that other video. But interestingly, and I think this is where your viewers may find of interest is, and I want people to bear with me on this.
Okay.
Now, I found something that has completely disappeared from the internet now, and it was to do with the Vatican, that we'd all been put in a charity for protection. I thought that's interesting.
Right.
And this is hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So then I looked at the canon laws that I think were originally called Canaan laws, because the story in the Bible where Abel and Cain, isn't the Cain and Abel?
Yeah.
And Cain kills Abel off. Well, that's what we do. We've got Cain meant easily possessed. Abel was sort of God's side, call it. And so it gets killed off. So I thought, that's just me. I wonder if it was originally Canaan law. So what I then did was start looking at this. And this was because it took me so long to do all this,
Yes.
a few years back. And I found that the Home Office had signed concordats with the Holy See as to how they should conduct themselves. And this is
what's a concord
agreement. Contract agreement.
So hang on, let's just stop you there. So you're saying the government have signed an agreement with the Vatican?
Agreements,
yes, with the Vatican on
Holy See, with the Holy See.
On the Holy See, right? On what sort of thing?
Right. Well, just sort of a quick explanation is how they must treat us, even if we don't believe in God and things like this.
Right.
And all their acts and statutes must adhere. That was one of them. All their acts and statutes must adhere to the codes of canon law.
Right.
So I've sent you evidence of that, where I went off to the Member of Parliament. Where are these concordats that have been signed with the Holy See? And I got a response back. Not that I'm putting it out there, but I sent it to you, so you witness that I got the reply. There are lots of concordats. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Which one do you want? And I thought, wow.
Right.
Wow. Right.
Well, so, any sample would be useful.
So they're all in the House of Commons. And so I did start saying, well, I want to look into this, I want to look into that. And then it gets where they don't start getting back to, it's not for public viewing. You can't.
Right.
It's in the House of Commons.
So what does that mean then?
What that means is, I don't know whether to go through this first.
Well, just in general, what does it mean? I mean, don't.
Okay. What it means is that in years gone by, you know how a lot of countries were under Catholic, Vatican, and then we were told in Henry VIII's time.
Yeah, we went to Protestant.
It was all scrapped and all that. Well, it looks like it wasn't.
Right.
He became the head of the Church of England by his own authority, But this, with the laws and the rules under the Vatican Catholic Church, carried on. And I looked into. I went back to King Alfred the Great. Now, to me, if you want to get rid of a weed, you have to pull it out by the root.
Yes.
Because if you keep just clipping bits off and going here, there, and everywhere,
it grows back.
It grows back. So.
But before you go back to all, the detail, I just wanted to get the big picture, because it seems to me you're saying something very, very important there, that the government have signed these concordants, these agreements with the Holy See about how they treat the public.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That is not for the public to know about.
Well, I don't know who's decided that.
Right. Okay. But that's what you were told.
now,
But
now,
what does that mean then to us if our government has made agreements which we don't know about? What does that say about democracy? And does any of that make any difference if you're out of that jurisdiction is what I'm trying to get to, and say, well, hang on a minute, okay, I believe in the Creator. Whatever man does is secondary to whatever the Creator does. Are they hiding this connection and saying, no, no, we're pretending to be the like the Catholic Church used to sort of be, we are the only connection to God, so you have to go through us, the middleman, a bit like a broker doing with your electricity. You can't go to the national grid; you have to go through a bloody broker, and they're all of that. Is that what this concordance business with the Holy See is about, in terms of making up a judicial law that is the so-called the legal system?
no, you see, the concordats are for our benefit,
But
and,
we're
and I
not told about them.
no, and I think they've been pushed to one side, and hopefully we don't find out about them. Now,
Right.
I'm somebody. If I'm hold on a minute, then I will test it. I will ask people to come in. Can I test this? And it even happened where I had a new department set up at the council, and somebody said to me, who was privy, let's say, to it, their exact words, and I'm going to put this politely,
Yeah.
what the heck did you put in there? That meeting should have took months, and they were going around like headless chickens and got it together in 3 weeks. So I've tried it all in different places. This is the canon law, divine law. I thought I've had enough, this
So
just
so
stop.
yeah, I'm just trying to get this clear in my head, so that hopefully I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe the viewers have got it, and I'm just being a bit dense here. So you did something in the council,
Mm-hmm.
and they managed to do it very quickly because you circumvented the normal crap by going straight to the using canon law or whatever it was, the concordances. Is that what you're saying?
What it is, if you think of 3 levels, so you've got legal on the bottom,
Yeah.
right? Look at it as 3 courts, maybe.
Right.
You've got legal on the bottom.
Yeah.
You've got canon law next,
Yeah.
then divine law.
Yeah.
So it goes up.
Yeah.
But the higher you go,
Yeah.
um, canon law, divine law, be careful, it gets tight. You know what you're on about, so to speak. Legal's a bit all over the place, but
Right. When you say, well, I mean, when you say tight, you mean you've got to be precise with the people. Is
yeah,
that
and they may come back with something, but you've got to study them, to know what
yes?
to go back with. It's like anything, you can't just go in willy-nilly. And the thing is, people need to get together on this, because at times I've heard somebody say, oh, what can I do? And I always say, well, get a lake, stand people side to side all the way around it, and all throw a pebble in, a boulder, and look at the ripples.
Yes.
And
So,
that, of
in other
course,
words, the more people you're saying, the more
yes,
people
yeah.
get involved. So, we're running out of time,
Okay,
unfortunately.
I'll
Which is,
just give you this
wait,
quick.
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. I just want to get this. Again, you know exactly what you're talking about, and this is kind of new to people, and so I'm having to take you very slowly so that we understand what it is you're saying, because we don't know. So you're saying in those 3 tiers of legal, canon law, and then divine law, that divine law. Now, I've heard that the Supreme Court has ruled that God is above legislation, which makes perfect sense to me, because the Creator created everything. How could anything that is above and that created things be below their own rules? So are you saying that actually, if you study and you realize that you could not bother with the legal crap, not bother with the canon law rubbish, but if you go straight to the divine law, you can achieve things without the the tyranny that comes to you and the judgments and all the nonsense that we get through councils and government by going straight to the top man, as it were.
Yeah, but again, as I say, you have to know what you're doing.
Yes, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. All those that taken on board. But you're saying that actually, if we did do the study, we could be more beneficial. Life could be more beneficial because we wouldn't be tied up in knots.
Yeah, you see, which is I've got loads more here, Richard.
I know. I
haven't
just
got
can't fit it.
time.
I just can't fit. I mean, I'd rather you didn't try and rush everything in,
Yeah,
and just do what so that people can get a snippet of what it is that you're saying.
yeah, because it was actually the Romans that brought in legal. And I'll not go into that now.
No.
And so they mixed it with Judeo-Christian to make it look a little bit more sort of the part.
Right.
But the canon laws, if people looked into those, for instance, I'll give you a quick example. A notary should be present at every court hearing.
Right. And are they?
No, they sit an unqualified clerk in there, don't they, Sat?
Right.
There's
I mean,
lots
the canon laws give you the presumption, don't they? There's the 12 presumptions that canon law, and I forget which one it is, 3558 or something like that, of the courts, and we've gone into that in the past.
Yeah.
They presume that you are this, this, and this, and unless you push back and rebut those presumptions, it stands. And so, we've gone into that in the past.
Yeah.
So look, in the last few minutes, and I'm sorry to rush you because I know that you've had years and years of this and you're trying to get it over. But we can come back and do another one if you're prepared to do this.
Yeah.
Are you? How would you sum up the use of the Bible for people then today?
Well, use it carefully, read it, look at yourself in the mirror first, and then follow the path. Look at what it's saying about the laws and commands, and people need to start turning their heads that way instead of consumerism, gossip, selfishness. It's all in there.
Right. But okay. So is that just your opinion that people should turn away from consumerism and look at that, or is that God's word?
It's not God's word, but it's instead of focusing, should I say, to just turn the focus a bit to why we're actually down here.
Yeah, and how does that benefit us?
Well,
or does it?
You feel better in yourself, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I'm not trying to sort of catch you out or criticize or anything. I'm just trying to sort of get to the core of what your interpretation of having gone back and looked at the original words of what the Bible has written. And I mean, people say it's the word of God. Is it? Do you think it is the word of God?
I
from
think it's come from some ancient maybe texts.
Right.
I mean, to me, I think so. But how it was originally and who got it and who wrote, I don't know. I don't know.
But I suppose ultimately, if you take on board everything that you said and you follow the path, as you say, it's more beneficial to us to do that, and we can avert some of the nonsense that's in the world. Does that help us in everyday life with council tax demands and people bashing your door down and all those sort of things?
It helps in everyday life. But I think, Richard, to be honest with you, I think we'll have to probably do another one because I need to link the canon law up to it and going back to Alfred the Great for people to really sort of get a grip of when they're taking these establishments on.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can understand that we need to. I can. Yes. I need. I mean, I do get that we need to sort of find out all the history of it. But ultimately, taking that as a given that that's happened. What are you saying then that by doing that we find that the the authorities are corrupt?
Um, in some senses, yeah. In some sense, you should find, because again, it's individual people you'll be speaking to at these concerns, and some are respectful. But I think the people have to take the power back, where we're all God's creation, and start looking at the words and the commands and the rules that have been left. Stop, legal taking over and other gods, small g, and start looking at actually where you stand in life and what rights you really do have, because both canon law and divine law are there for us. It's a very and I'm not keep you much longer. Very quick one, which the farmers could use. Anybody can use this. This is canon law 25. No custom obtains the force of law unless it has been observed with the intention of introducing a law by a community capable at least of receiving that law.
Could you just read that again? I didn't quite follow all
Canon
of it.
25.
Yeah.
No custom obtains the force of law unless it has been observed with the intention of introducing a law by a community capable at least of receiving that law. That to me is, with this council tax rent increase,
Yeah.
you should be asking the people. They should be voting on it.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, I mean, that's
You
yeah.
see what I mean?
But so could you use that law? Could you go to the council with that law, quote that law, and say you can't raise the council tax because Canon Law 25 says this, therefore, tough titty, away you go.
Well, you can say we want it going out to the people. We want to vote on
Yes.
this.
Yes.
This is what it says here.
But does that have the force that they would agree to do it?
It has with me with various things.
Right. Okay.
So it's again, you've got to get yourself used to this. I mean, there's more.
No, I know, but they're not just going to laugh at you. The council are just not going that you're just quoting archaic nonsense. What do you know? What I'm trying to get to is actually they can laugh at you, but if you say, well, try that in a court of law, mate, and you'll find out that actually you have to do it. Is that the difference?
Yeah, the thing is that with that, you always get some ignorance, but you have to remind them that it's been signed by the Home Office.
Right. That's what. That's exactly what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I know that they'll be ignorant of it. I understand that, but if it's taken up, higher with the Attorney General or something, and you say, here is the canon law, this. Are you saying that this must be adhered to because you've signed the concordances with the Holy See, therefore it has to happen, even though the people below that you've dealt with are ignorant?
Yeah, that's your argument. So
right. Okay. Brilliant. No, that's good. I'm just trying to get. I'm just trying to get clarity. I know that I understand that the people facing you are going, I don't understand what you're talking about. That sounds rubbish. But if you take it up with the top people in the government, they know, and they have to obey because it's signed.
It goes very quiet.
Yes.
And I think that's a good one for the farmers. Everybody across the board.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, it was just coming up to the hour now, so I need to finish off. But maybe we can have another chat in more deep and do the history bit.
Yeah, and the canon laws, and it's very interesting from Alfred the Great.
Absolutely.
And there's other things here that people will find of interest.
And is there anywhere where people can find that information? Have you put it on a website? Is it available for people to download?
Not yet. But
are you going to do that so that you can help?
Oh yeah, I will do. It's just
excellent.
I'm still getting things together, and I've got stuff on land registry, mortgages, you'll find it very interesting.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Rebellious Thorn. I will leave the link to the other description in which you go through and you tell us some of the words, and people can have a look at that at their leisure. But in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on and telling us that it's worth taking another look at the Bible in a completely different way to interpret it, and to look up some of those other things in which, I mean, for me, the highlight of this is to know that there are those rules that we can circumvent the nonsense at the lower level. And a number of us have sort of assumed that and have been doing it, but not necessarily knowing the full picture. And you've certainly helped to create more of that. The jigsaw is beginning to take shape. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to talk to you.
And you too, Richard. Thank you.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you find that interesting. Links in the description. I'll be back very soon. Till next time, from Rebellious Thorn and myself, goodbye.